Now, ang bread and tomato salad, naturally, kailangan ng bread. So we will make our bread. Two things to remember. Alam ko hindi naturo ito sa PPT. Alright? There are two types of dough when it comes to what is called bread. Or in other words, yeast production. Yung tinatawag na yeast. What is yeast? Yeast is a living organism. No? It is a living organism. No? Huwag natin kakalimutan yan, buhay ito. So therefore, katulad mo, in some certain weather, pag masyadong mainit, mamamatay ka. Same with yeast. If it is too cold, same thing with you, you will freeze to death. Yeast is also the same. Again, there are two kinds of dough. Number one is what is called lean, L-E-A-N. Lean dough. Then, number two, there is what is called rich, yung mayaman, R-I-C-H, rich dough. What is the difference? Pag sinabing lean dough, the only ingredients is flour, some salt or flavoring. Lalagay na natin ito dito. Alright. Some salt, flavoring, some and yeast, water, and a little bit of oil. Yun lang. Nothing else. Comparing to rich dough is what? Basically, it is flour, there is milk, there is sugar, there is melted butter, there is other flavorings to it. Minsan, kung ano-ano pang nilalagay. So, mainly speaking, ang bread has two types of dough. Again, lean dough, na walang ibang nilagay kundi water, a little bit of oil, yeast. Tayo nilalagay natin ng sugar eh. Because sugar is the favorite of yeast. Talagang kinakain yan. And ang ano naman, what do you call this? The rich dough has other ingredients like egg, milk, sugar. Kunyari, or example, pandesal. That's why it is soft. That's why yung mga French bread or what is called baguette, it's crunchy, medyo chewy siya, matigas yung labas because it is part of what is called lean dough. Mayroon importance yan ha. There's an importance of the use of lean and rich dough. Ang lean dough, yung gagawin natin, is particularly good for making croutons, salad, for garlic bread. Dapat yung medyo, yung may crunch talaga. There are 12 steps in yeast production. Sulat nyo na to. Let's go ahead with it, ha? Number 1, it is to scale. S-C-A-L-E. Ano yung to scale? To weigh all your ingredients. In professional baking, baking is a science compared to cooking. Ang cooking, hindi ka kailangan mag-measure masyado eh. But ang professional baking, you really have to measure. Because it is supposed to be a complete science. No? Because pag medyo nag-miss ka ng konti, you will have a problem. Alright, number 2. After you scale, you mix. M-I-X. Ano yung mix? Yung kasama na doon yung pag-knead. When you knead it. Number 3, it is to ferment. Ferment. What is to ferment? Ang ibig sabihin ng ferment, it is when the yeast will feed on sugar and starches. It will produce carbon dioxide and oxygen. Kaya umaalsa ang bread. Alright? So, number 1 is to scale. Number 2 is to mix. Number 3 is to ferment. After you ferment, number 4, you will punch. Literally, susuntukin mo. That is to release the gases inside the dough. By the way, before I continue on with this, di ba? The flour and water or liquid, when you combine them together, you will produce either of the two. You can produce either a dough or what is called a batter. Yung medyo basa, yung dough, yung medyo solid. Okay? Let's continue. At saan ba ako tumigil?
Number 4.
Release gas, punch, no? After you punch, you will round. Yung ginagawa natin, di ba nakita nyo na yun, ginaganon ko din, binabaliktad ko, I will cut it into 4. Di ba? Tapos nira-round natin, we make it round again. Also, after you round, the next to that is what is called bench. B-E-N-C-H. What is to bench? In English, ang tawag dyan, i-rest mo. You will rest the dough again. You will rest the dough again. Sometimes ako, I skip that, yung part na yan, yung pagre-rest ng dough. Because why? Pag hindi mo ni-rest, you know, the behavior of dough, after you play with it, nagde-develop yung gluten, what is called gluten. That's why sometimes, when you keep rolling, niro-roll up mo na, no? Yung bumabalik, ibig sabihin nun, the gluten is developed. You have to rest it first. So in other words, bench. Alright? After you round, you bench. Tama ba? After number 7, you do the make-up. Yung parang make-up, yung nagpupulbos, yung nag-lipstick. What do you mean by make-up? If you are making dinner rolls, you make dinner rolls. If you are making what? Breadsticks, you make breadsticks. If you are making baguettes, you make baguettes. Alright? After you do the makeup, number 8, you will proof. P-R-O-O-F. Proof. Ang proof at ferment. Di ba? Ang ferment is what? You will make it rise. That is when the yeast will feed on sugar and starches. Ang proof. After you do the makeup, ginawa mo na, di ba? Yung mga pandesal-pandesal mo. You cannot put that in the oven right away. You have to proof it. Again, you are repeating the fermentation. Bakit iniba yung pangalan? Why do you have to call it fermentation in the beginning, then at the end, proof, towards the end? When it is actually the same. The only difference is, buo pa yung dough, ang proof is already may mga makeup na sila. Right? Now, what is the difference? Why do you have to have two different terminologies to the same process? Why? Because it is to identify, lalo na pag you're working already, then your shift will end. May papasok. So other words, you can endorse to the next person if this is what? I'm only fermenting. Or I am in the proof. Ibig sabihin, patapos ang proof, ang ferment, beginning pa lang. Alright? Sige, after you proof, you bake. Bake. Alright? After you bake, anong number na? 9, 10. After you bake, tama ba? You cool down. Cool down. After you cool down, you wrap. W-R-A-P. Anong ibig sabihin ng wrap? Ibabalot mo na. Then, number 12, you store. So again, para hindi ako nag-iisip. So, then again, to repeat, the 12 steps in yeast production, it is to scale, it is to mix, it is to ferment, it is to punch, to round, to bench, make up, proof, bake, cool down, wrap, then you store. Anong ibig sabihin ng store? Itatago mo na. The 12 steps of yeast production.